I want to talk about National Signing Day and the number one recruit who signed or is going to sign at Jackson State University. Dan, can you read that story one more time? Because this is one which, again, and I don't like to build the show from Twitter, but it is really an interesting one. The number one or number two prospect, right? Travis Hunter, is that right?
That is correct. Travis Hunter was verbally committed to Florida State, but now the early signing period in college football is today and starts today, and he did not end up going to the Seminoles, instead choosing to play for Deion Sanders in Jackson State.
Also chose over Georgia as well, right? Over the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes, but he was verbally committed to Florida State. Yeah.
But when he did the hat thing, he had the different hats, and he went, all right, here's what I'm going to do. In one segment, I'm going to prove to you what a joke the idea of the name, image, and likeness is, because people like to say that players are as valuable as coaches and that they should be making this money and that coaches, whatever. And also, I will. It's really sad what has become of social media. Okay, we have people, and I tweeted this out, that Twitter is celebrating a kid making an obvious mistake. Twitter is celebrating a kid making an obvious mistake is hilarious. Okay, Deion Sanders can celebrate Jackson State and try and build a historically black college and university into a power, but the reality is he wanted the TCU job. He is interviewed for just about every job, especially the ones in the state of Texas they would like to get, and he may well become the next head coach at Florida State, which time he would probably take Travis Hunter with him, which, of course, brings us to the whole idea of when coaches get a big salary and you get writers and fans like, why don't the kids deserve it? Like, because players follow the coaches more than the school, which is, in fact, a mistake. Like, look, if you just take emotions out of it, or the desire for people to see HBCUs succeed, and you just deal with actual logic, right? You have a kid who's from Georgia, could go to Georgia, an incredible top 25 public institution, or go to Florida State, which is a top 50 public institution, right? Both are amazing schools. Both have gigantic alumni bases. Both are historically significant football programs. But he chose Deion Sanders. And look, if you're a cornerback, and Deion Sanders is easily the greatest cover corner of all time, I get that. I understand that. But you're signing up to play against a far inferior schedule with far inferior facilities. And, like, look, part of the deal is if the kid is really, really, really that good, right? He's 6'1", 165. You know, he's obviously over his next 3 or 4 years, he's going to have to put on, 30 some odd pounds of muscle. And, with the training of Deion Sanders, well, like, why couldn't he be a great player? There's no reason he couldn't. But you pick your university on all of these factors, and none of them outside of Deion Sanders are a factor that would make you want to choose Jackson State over Florida State, right? Because, one, you want, what's the ceiling, right? The ceiling is you play in the ACC, you play against a legit schedule, you could play for a national championship. You can't at the Division I level when you're at Jackson State. Additionally, you're not going to compete against the best in practice. You're not going to compete against the best in games. And while if you're talented enough, it doesn't matter. You should kind of break through. You're not exactly sharpening iron playing at Jackson State. Everybody knows that. The facilities, the rehab facilities, Percy Miller, that's Master P's son, just left Tennessee State. There hasn't been a reporter who has retweeted the story that he left because his son got hurt and they felt like they had subpar medical facilities. You have all these people talking about, man, I want so badly this to happen, this to succeed, when no one's actually giving money to the university, or not enough to build it into a power as a football program. You can't do it without money. You can't do it unless you play the top teams. You can't do it unless you have money. You can't do it with one dude. It's with a lot of dudes. And I get it. One guy puts a flag in the ground. But you have all of these people that supposedly care about kids when the smart decision for a talented young kid is to give himself not just the best opportunity to succeed at the highest level, but what's your safety net? If God forbid, Travis Hunter doesn't succeed in football, and he's a former Georgia Bulldog, he's kind of set for life. The same is true at Florida State. At Jackson State, the scope, the spectrum, the reach of the alumni base isn't as great. No one would argue as such. Anyone arguing as such. But what happens is when you point out that it's an obvious mistake to go play an inferior schedule for a coach who may or may not be there, with all things being lesser funded, being lesser supported. That when you point that out, I get called I'm a racist for pointing it out. When I actually care about the human being, that's where we are. Which, by the way, means that you're making a racially motivated decision if you choose to play for, I guess, a white coach. Like, I don't really understand that. By the way, all of this is the power and reach of Deion Sanders, which only solidifies why the coaches are far more important. Players, universities change based upon who their head coach is in football. It's the front door of the institution. Oh, yeah, by the way, the real reason that Travis Hunter chose to go to Jackson State is reportedly, Barstool Sports, who Deion Sanders works for, is going to pay him to be an ambassador, somewhere 7-figure deal. Okay, problem with that is that they have a stake in Penn Gaming. I don't even know how that goes over. But when you make a decision solely based upon money, you're usually making the wrong decision. And as people who give really good advice tell you, if you can make a decision based upon the next 3 or 4 years or the next 40 years. And I am a next 40 years sort of guy. If he's that good, you want to play and compete against the best and see what he looks like against Clemson or in the SEC against the litany, the Alabamas, the Floridas, the A&Ms of the world, soon to be Oklahomas and Texases of the world. But in addition to that, what happens if something goes wrong and you need the best of the best in terms of doctors and trainers? What happens if something goes wrong and you don't have a football career again? I'm so exhausted by the idiocy of people in my profession who are so caught up in somehow trying to even the racial playing field that they're missing that they're actually doing a disservice to current players, current kids. Yeah, you want them to succeed. You want them to get a great degree. You want them to become champions in business and in life. That's the whole idea. And the safe play, the smart play, is the right play. And, oh, yeah, by the way, like, I kind of feel like Kirby Smart seems to know what he's doing. I kind of feel like Nick Saban seems to know what he's doing. I don't know if they'll turn around at Florida State, but all people seem to think that if they get the players, they'll be able to do it. And, oh, yeah, by the way, there is no name, image, and likeness true value to a player. It's just not. That's just that. This is simply pay for play, which, again, if you're okay with that, you're okay with that. I'm not. But the argument was, hey, their name, image, and likeness has value. It doesn't have value until you actually play a snap, and it's going to have far less value if you play at an HBCU as opposed to if you play at one of the big boys. And if you think coaches don't matter far more so than anything else, I give you Deion Sanders laying in the number 2 recruit in the country. He doesn't go anywhere near. And the second Deion decides to leave and takes another job, he's going with him. That's what most do. That's why the coaches are more valuable. It's not close. So this isn't an anti-player rant. It's actually pro-player. If he's that good, he wants to play against the best, play in the best environment, and have the best training and the best support system, the best athletic training, the best medical staff, the best education possible. So that, God forbid, something goes wrong with his football career, he's got the rest of his life. And there hasn't been one person that said, hey, whatever happened to McCord Maker, who went to an HBCU last year? It didn't go well, left early in the season, and hasn't been heard from since. Right? There's been other athletes that have gone this route. Nobody's done the follow-up as to, hey, did it work out for you? So I love signing day, and I actually do celebrate the players, but I think it's funny that we get to a place where a player is making a very obvious mistake, chasing a legend in a Deion Sanders and getting caught in. And Deion is a dynamic and engaging dude who can, and he does know football, and he has put together a nice staff. And it's not that they're not doing a good job. There's just a limit to what you can do at that level. Everybody knows it. Everyone. Deion included. Like Deion actually pointed out after one of their games that they don't have the names on the back of their jerseys in HBCUs, and it's because of cost. Cost. You can't put the name on the back of the jersey. You can't build new weight rooms and stadiums and facilities. You think you're going to have the right support for a superstar athlete? And while the Jerry Rices of the world have made it, that wasn't out of choice. In the 1970s, and this is, most people don't know this. Do you guys know James Brown, who's the host of All Things on CBS? Jason, you know James Brown, right? The host of CBS's NFL coverage.
JB, yeah,
yes. Do you know what he what his sport of choice was?
I want to say basketball.
Yes, you know where he played basketball?
Was it Brown University?
Harvard University.
Ah.
In the 1970s, there was a big movement in many of the cities in the East Coast to open up the gates of the Ivy League, which is in the last 10 years the same has occurred, where and there's been a movement in many of the best black players were playing at Ivy League schools, and the league was loaded with talent. Again, that's a brilliant way to change the system, right? To not only you want to play at that same level, the 1AA level in football, you could do it, or at the Division I level in basketball, you do it, and then you get a world-class education, but more importantly, you're part of like the skulls of Harvard or Yale or Dartmouth or Brown or Princeton or Penn or Cornell or Columbia. I didn't create these universities. This is not some new opinion. These are the facts. Could it eventually change over a process of 25 years? I guess. But the reality is, the first time Deion gets a job that he offered a job that he likes, he gone. And all those guys with him. So it's not about the HBCU. It's not about the school. It's solely about Deion as dynamic a personality and as great a player as he was. And I think he's probably a pretty good football coach too. But we're making it about the wrong things. And this is the wrong choice because of the lack of safety net it provides and the lack of support that he will likely endure. It's the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. You can get mad at me all you want. I know I'm right. Something we talked about to start the show, and I get messages. This is what guys do because they're dummies. They slide into my Instagram pictures of my kid. Steve Classic says, don't ever put HBCUs in your mouth. Some stuff you wouldn't understand, and I accept that. So now we're doing hey, you're a white guy. You don't understand a young, talented black athlete changing his oral commitment the day of signing day to sign with Jackson State. I don't understand that. Like, I've played sports and covered sports pretty much my entire life. I actually know all about all this stuff. We're making it out to be about HBCUs. It's about Deion Sanders and a gob of money being thrown at a kid. And if anyone really, really thinks like you're better off going to Jackson State to play football as a cornerback than go to play at Georgia, Florida State, Texas A&M, you're certifiably insane, or you're just not worthy of any sort of realistic discussion because you can't take emotion out of it. Those schools have way more resources, far larger alumni bases, play at a much higher level of competition, have much greater support in terms of academics, athletics, training support, etc. You can't compare with Deion Sanders as a cornerback. He's unbelievable. He's the best I've ever seen. Okay? But the idea that outweighs every other factor. People don't line up and go, even just choosing schools, they go like, well, what do you think about going? Yeah, I like Georgia, maybe Florida State, maybe A&M, and maybe Jackson State. Like, what? You know, and if you want to tell me it's about HBCUs, ask yourself, if Deion leaves tomorrow, he's staying there? Of course not. It ain't about anything other than Deion and a gob of money. That's it. And you're like, well, who are you to? I'm the voice of actual reason. Somebody who's covered this and seen it and been a part of it and knows what it's like to make bad decisions based upon your lust and search for immediate payday as opposed to the 40-year win of going to a great school playing for national. By the way, if you really want to get down to what makes you valuable in terms of your name, image, and likeness coming out of college, you know what the number one thing that makes you valuable is? Well, first, it's the brand that you play for. Right? The bigger the brand, the bigger the following. Secondly, how successful you are. That's it. And if I hear another guy, well, look at all the different NFL players that have played at all these different outpost schools. Yes, because they didn't have the chance to play. Do you think they wouldn't have gone to Alabama or Georgia or Florida State or A&M? Of course. Of course they would have gone there. They didn't because they didn't have that chance. But this, you don't, like, okay, so white guys aren't allowed to comment on it? Like, that's dumb. We've reached dumb. I've also seen you're a racist. Because I don't think it's in the kid's best decision for his long-term future, and I have 30, 40 years of data to prove that I'm right? Right? Okay. So then is it a racist for a black player they're not allowed to sign with any white coach or any traditional university? You have to sign with, like, what are you doing here? What are we doing? You know, when older people say, hey, I've been through it and I understand that the best decision that you're going to make is chance to play style play. You're going to want to play somewhere that's going to compete for a championship. But you also, like, look, what I can tell you, the real talk is when you're done playing, whether that's right after college or whether that's, 20 years after playing in the NFL, you're going to fall back on the relationships that you have established in college and the relationships around that school. That is your family. And Georgia and A&M and Florida State are unbelievable football and scholastic families, far more so than Jackson State. And don't give me I'm trying to change all of that. No, you're not. You're just taking a big check. And any decision that's made for immediate payday above any other logic and reason isn't a sound decision. We all know it. Just nobody else wants to say it, so I will.